The Principality of Antioch, a steadfast stronghold amidst the endless chaos of the Holy Land, was home to knights who had pledged their lives to hold back the tide of darkness. Among them was Sir Reinhardt, a mid-ranking knight renowned not for his heroics, but for his unwavering loyalty and steady hand in times of crisis. Reinhardt's role was often one of quiet importance, the protection of dignitaries, envoys, and honored guests within the Principality's borders. That is why the order he received on a humid summer morning was unlike any he had encountered before. Delivered directly by his former patron, a man he held in the highest esteem, the parchment bore a royal seal and a clause of utmost secrecy. Even under the sacrament of confession or last rites, Reinhardt was forbidden to disclose its contents. The command was as perplexing as it was unsettling. Escort the so-called war prophet on a mission of undisclosed purpose. While the people of Antioch valued the pilgrims' contributions in the fight against Hell's legions, they were treated as little more than fervent volunteers. Therefore, to entrust a knight with such a mission, much less one sworn to secrecy, was a clear signal that this task carried immense importance. Though unnerved by the assignment, Reinhardt trusted his patron implicitly. He chose his two most loyal companions, Garin and Halric, to accompany him. Both men were seasoned warriors, bound to Reinhardt by years of shared hardship. Men he could trust. On the appointed day, as the sun began its ascent into a cloudless sky, the three knights rode to a small farming village nestled on the outskirts of the Principality. The settlement, a vital supplier of wheat to the Crusader forces, lay bathed in the golden hues of early summer. Their destination was a field at the edge of the village. As they approached, Reinhardt spotted a peculiar sight. A man lying naked on his back in the center of the field, arms outstretched in the shape of a cross. His pale skin glistened under the punishing sun, yet he appeared completely unbothered by the heat. Reinhardt and his men dismounted, seeking the shade of a nearby tree as they observed the figure in silence. The man's stillness was almost unnatural, his face calm as if in deep communion with something beyond mortal comprehension. An hour passed before movement stirred within the nearby hut. A young woman stepped out, carrying a clay pitcher of water. She walked unhurriedly to the prone figure, knelt beside him, and dipped her hand into the pitcher. Gently, she wiped water across his forehead, then leaned in to whisper something inaudible into his ear. The man gave the faintest nod, but did not open his eyes. After a moment, the woman rose and returned to the hut without a word. The figure on the ground stirred. Rising with a serene grace, he turned to face the knights, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I am Angelos," he said, his voice calm yet filled with quiet authority. Reinhardt took in the sight of him, young and slender, with hair as golden as the wheat that surrounded them. His pale complexion seemed untouched by the sun's harsh rays, and his eyes carried a strange, otherworldly light. When Reinhardt asked about their mission, Angelos' response was cryptic. "We must visit a few dangerous places," he said, "and a few even more dangerous friends." The knights exchanged uneasy glances, but asked no further questions. Angelos' presence was disarming in its calmness, yet his words carried an undeniable weight. That evening they dined in the small hut. The meal was humble but satisfying. Reinhardt's gaze lingered on the young woman who had tended to Angelos earlier. He noticed a tattoo on the nape of her neck, an intricate design that bore unmistakable pagan origins. A flicker of anger stirred within him, but he chose to keep his thoughts to himself. The woman seemed to pay no mind to the knights, her demeanor one of quiet resignation. As the sun rose the following morning, the group prepared to depart. The air was crisp, the horizon tinged with the soft glow of dawn. The first days of their journey were uneventful. Riding on horseback, the group moved steadily along well-trodden roads, passing familiar landmarks and stopping at settlements known to Reinhardt and his men. These were places where Crusader hospitality still flourished. Fortified holdings where weary travelers could find rest, food, and safety. Angelos remained mostly quiet during these stops, his enigmatic demeanor a constant reminder of the mission's peculiar nature. They traveled south, always south. The summer sun beat down relentlessly, and the air grew heavier with each passing day. The comfort of familiar surroundings slowly gave way to uncertainty as they began to encounter fewer and fewer Crusader outposts. The fortified manor houses and watchtowers that once dotted the landscape became rare, replaced by untamed wilderness and stretches of desolate land. Each evening, Reinhardt's men grew more uneasy. Angelos, however, seemed entirely unbothered by the growing remoteness of their route. One night, as the group set up camp beneath a canopy of stars, Reinhardt could no longer hold back his questions. After the evening meal, he approached Angelos, his voice steady but laced with tension. "Prophet," he began carefully, "how far south do you intend for us to travel?" Angelos, reclining by the fire with a serene expression, did not hesitate. "Until we reach the outskirts of Damascus," he replied simply. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Reinhardt froze, his thoughts racing, while his companions exchanged incredulous glances. It was Reinhardt who finally broke the stunned silence, his voice rising. "Damascus, do you expect us to ride willingly into the lion's den? The Saracens will not welcome us with open arms. They will see us as invaders, spies, perhaps worse. We cannot simply ride into their lands and expect to walk out alive." Angelos remained unshaken, his calm gaze fixed on the night. "We do not need to enter Damascus, Sir Reinhardt. We need only reach its outskirts, and you worry too much about things that have not yet come to pass." The prophet's words did little to quell the storm brewing in Reinhardt's mind. But Angelos said no more, retreating into a silence that seemed unbreakable. That night, as Angelos slept undisturbed near the dying embers of the fire, Reinhardt and his two companions gathered under the cover of darkness, speaking in hushed tones. "This is madness," muttered one of the men, a stout veteran named Garin. "We are being led to our deaths. I can feel it. Who in their right mind would order us to ride to the very gates of Damascus?" "Not just anyone," Reinhardt replied, his voice low and sharp. "This mission came directly from the principality itself, and yet I cannot make sense of it. Why such secrecy? Why him?" He cast a glance toward the sleeping prophet. The third knight, younger and more cautious, spoke hesitantly. "Perhaps he is not what he seems. We know little of him, save for the title he claims. What if his loyalty lies elsewhere?" Reinhardt nodded grimly. "We must tread carefully. Whatever his purpose, we will not be caught unprepared. For now, we follow orders, but we keep our wits about us and our swords within reach." As the men returned to their bedrolls, the weight of their unspoken doubts pressed heavily on their minds. In the distance, the faint howling of jackals echoed across the barren land, a chilling reminder of the dangers yet to come. The further they ventured into lands controlled by the Saracens, the more cautious their journey became. The once wide and bustling trade roads gave way to secluded paths known only to the most seasoned travelers. Each night they camped in isolated clearings, their fires kept low and their voices hushed. Angelos had grown more vigilant, often glancing over his shoulder or pausing to survey their surroundings. One day, as they passed a small caravan, Reinhardt noticed a merchant lingering too long, his gaze fixed on the prophet. Angelos did not react, but that evening, he quietly instructed one of the knights to fall back and ensure they were not being followed. A sense of unease settled over the group, tightening like a noose as they crossed into Syria. The once familiar landscape of Crusader holdings had vanished, replaced by foreign lands where every shadow seemed to conceal an unseen threat. Not long after crossing the border, Angelos led the group to a small, abandoned settlement nestled between rocky hills. "We will wait here for a few days," he announced. His tone brooked no argument, and Reinhardt, though uneasy, gave his silent consent. Each day around noon, Angelos climbed a nearby hill and stood motionless, scanning the horizon as if waiting for something or someone. The knights watched from below, their curiosity mounting with each passing day. On the fourth day, the prophet's vigil bore fruit. Reinhardt, observing from afar, saw Angelos stiffen and turn his gaze skyward. Following his line of sight, Reinhardt spotted a lone eagle circling above. Moments later, the bird descended, landing near Angelos with an uncanny grace. The prophet approached the eagle with measured steps, his movements filled with an almost reverent caution. A small parcel was attached to the bird's talon. Angelos untied it, murmuring something inaudible before the eagle took flight, vanishing into the clouds. As he descended the hill, Reinhardt noticed a flicker of irritation cross the prophet's face. Angelos glanced briefly at the knights before muttering under his breath, "Pigeons are far less troublesome." Upon returning to the camp, Angelos unwrapped the parcel, his expression unreadable as he read its contents. A moment later, he turned to the group and announced, "We have the time and place. Break camp. We leave tonight." Their destination was a vineyard tucked into the shadow of a rocky outcrop. The sprawling fields stretched across a volcanic plateau, the soil dark and fertile. The group approached the estate cautiously, their horses' hooves muffled by the soft earth. A wiry old man emerged from the shadows of the vineyard, his weathered face breaking into a toothless grin as he spotted Angelos. "Ah, my friend," he greeted in Arabic, his voice crackling like dry leaves. To Reinhardt's surprise and growing suspicion, Angelos responded in fluent Arabic. The exchange was brief but cordial, and the old man gestured for them to follow him into the estate's cellar. The knights tensed as they descended into the dimly lit room, their hands instinctively drifting to their weapons. Waiting for them in the cellar was a man whose appearance left no doubt about his profession. His robes were stained with soot and chemicals, and the faint odor of sulfur clung to him like a shadow. And the mask. An alchemist. Reinhardt's hand reflexively gripped the hilt of his sword. His unease was palpable, his instincts screaming danger. But before he could draw, Angelos turned to him with a gaze that burned like fire. "If I see so much as an inch of steel in my friend's presence," Angelos said, his voice cold and unyielding, "I will ensure you never lift a blade again." The alchemist chuckled softly, his voice tinged with amusement. "Come now," he said in fluent Greek. "You know they can't help themselves." The tension in the room eased. Angelos and the alchemist greeted each other formally, their body language a strange blend of familiarity and restraint. "Did you bring the samples?" the alchemist asked, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. "I did," Angelos replied, producing a small bundle from beneath his cloak. Inside were 2 small ingots of an unrecognizable metal, their surfaces gleaming faintly in the dim light. "A fortune for 2 ingots?" the alchemist asked, raising an eyebrow. "A fortune for 1, Angelos corrected. The other was acquired by other means." The alchemist smirked knowingly. "Spare me the details of your Christian thievery. I know it much too well." Angelos slid the ingots across the table. "Can you replicate it?" The alchemist examined the pieces, his expression unreadable. "Are you certain it's genuine?" "I am," Angelos replied firmly. "Then make yourselves at home," the alchemist said, tucking the metal pieces away. "This will take time." The atmosphere in the vineyard grew heavier as the alchemist worked tirelessly to complete the final stages of his craft. The small forge blazed day and night, and the rhythmic clinking of tools echoed through the estate. Reinhardt kept a watchful eye on both Angelos and the alchemist, though his mind remained clouded with suspicion. He couldn't shake the memory of Angelos calmly speaking Arabic or the pagan landlady from the day they met. The steel they worked on, this mythical Orichalcum, seemed otherworldly, shimmering with an unnatural brilliance. Its very presence unnerved him. Late one evening, unable to contain his doubts any longer, Reinhardt confronted Angelos. "Prophet," he began, his voice low but firm, "do you not see the danger in this alliance? We trust our lives and this sacred mission to those who, not long ago, fought against us. How can we be sure their motives are pure?" Angelos turned to him, his usual serene demeanor unshaken. "Tell me, Reinhardt," he said calmly, Who is your true enemy today? The Saracens, or rather the endless legions of hell? Reinhardt faltered, unsure how to respond. Angelos continued, his voice steady. The forces of hell do not discriminate, Reinhardt. They will consume all Christian, Muslim, or otherwise. In a war such as this, sometimes your enemy's enemy must become your ally. This metal, he gestured toward the glowing ingots of Orichalcum, is our one chance to tip the balance. Do not let your fear and pride blind you to what must be done. When the final stage of the process was completed, the alchemist was able to obtain a small ingot of the alloy. Its surface seemed alive, pulsing with a faint golden glow, like sunlight trapped within the metal. The alchemist's assistants and knights gathered around it, their eyes wide with wonder and something else. Reinhardt felt an almost magnetic pull. The air in the room seemed charged, thick with an unspoken tension. He couldn't look away from the ingot, and a voice, faint and insidious, whispered in the back of his mind, "This is power, this is greatness, and it could be yours."
Take it now.
One of the alchemist's assistants began to laugh, a low, guttural sound that sent shivers down Reinhardt's spine. The man's eyes were bloodshot, his expression twisted with something unnatural. "You fools," he hissed, his voice distorted. "This metal is not for you. It belongs to the darkness." Before anyone could react, the assistant lunged at the alchemist, a dagger gleaming in his hand. Chaos erupted. Reinhardt and his knights drew their swords, but even they were not immune to the whispers, and their blades turned against their recent allies. Angelos, standing amidst the chaos, raised his voice above the clamor. "Do not listen to it. The voices are lies." His words, however, echoed hollowly. What was to come was already inevitable. The battle raged on. The alchemist, though unarmed, fought with surprising ferocity, wielding vials of volatile chemicals to fend off his now possessed assistants. Angelos, with a strength that belied his slender frame, held his ground against the tide of madness. The advantage of the frenzied attackers, however, was too great. The room was filled with shouts, the clash of steel, and the sickening crunch of blows landing. One by one, the assistants fell, but the cost was great. The alchemist, bleeding from several wounds, collapsed to his knees. Angelos, battered and bloodied, knelt beside him. At the last moment, the prophet turned, his eyes burning with fury and resolve. "Reinhardt, fight it! In the name of Saint Lucia, look through your eyes and see the truth," he commanded. Reinhardt hesitated, his sword wavering. He saw the ingot lying untouched amidst the wreckage, its glow undimmed. Reinhardt dropped his blade. Angelos, his strength fading, turned to him. His voice was weak, but steady. "Reinhardt, you must take the ingot, take the formula, return to Antioch. Use this gift to fight the true enemy." Tears filled Reinhardt's eyes as he knelt beside the prophet, dropping his blade. "I failed you," he whispered. Angelos managed a faint smile. "You faltered, Reinhardt, but you did not fail. Even the greatest among us can stumble, but faith allows us to rise again." Reinhardt left the vineyard at dawn, the ingot and the formula secured in a small chest. The vineyard, now silent and empty, seemed to mourn the loss of those who had sacrificed everything. When he returned to Antioch, Reinhardt delivered the ingot and the alchemist's notes to his superiors. He spoke little of what had transpired, but the weight in his eyes told the tale. In the solitude of the chapel, Reinhardt knelt before the altar, his voice trembling as he prayed. "Let this steel serve only as a weapon of faith and protection, never of pride. Let it be a testament to those who gave their lives for hope." As he rose, the sunlight streaming through the stained glass fell upon the ingot, now being forged into the first armor of Orichalcum. Its glow was faint but steady, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, faith could forge a path to redemption.